Jim Uno emailed me. He said he was a fan of my videos and he'd like to send me some LED lamps because they have so much better color spectrum. Now, I'm always reluctant about taking on freebies, but I knew I had a bit of a problem because shots at my table saw this type of spruce wood always showed up a little bit green, and I always have to fudge the colors a bit to make it look good. Now, the LED lights that Jim sent me are mostly strips like this one, but I have a lot of light fixtures like this that I use, so I also ended up buying some LED equivalent bulbs from the Home Depot. I thought I'd do a quick check of the spectrum just using a CD-ROM as a diffraction grating, and you can see how it takes the light from the outside and just sort of separates that into different color bands, so I can see the individual wavelengths on here quite nicely. Now let's check this with a lamp here, and again, and this is interesting, you can see here there's different images of this lamp with different colors. So that tells me this compact fluorescent light that I've got in here is actually emitting light primarily at very specific wavelengths. So I thought I'd set up an experiment. This is a compact fluorescent bulb and this is an LED bulb, and I want just a strip of light exposed from each. So let's do the test with a CD-ROM again. And looking at it here, on the right we have the LED bulb, and on the left we have the compact fluorescent, and you can see the compact fluorescent has got most of the light in just a few wavelengths, whereas the LED bulb is a pretty smooth spectrum in comparison. Now Jim Uno says his LEDs are really good, so I've got one mounted on the ceiling, and let's try that again with the CD-ROM. And there might be another peak with the blue as well. Whatever it is, it's more like the other LED and not like the CF. So I'm pretty sure that the spectrum coming out of the CF bulbs is shit, and the LED bulbs, both Jim's and the ones from Home Depot, are way better. Now to illustrate why these spectrum differences, even though we can't see them with the naked eye, matter, let's switch to black and white. So we have these objects of different brightnesses, and now I'm just going to switch lights. And you'll notice now the brightnesses are quite different with respect to each other. This has gotten way dark, and this is quite light. Let's switch back. And now if we look at the whole thing in color, it's obvious what the difference is. We're looking at it with red light. So the thing is, the colors that we see as red, green, or blue are actually whole ranges of wavelengths. And if the green from your lamp, for example, is only one wavelength of green, and the object is very reflective or not at all reflective at that wavelength, the green will be much brighter or much dimmer than it would be under natural light. And so what's causing this wood to show up slightly green in many of my shots is probably that it's slightly more reflective at the wavelength that the CF bulbs emit than it is at other wavelengths, so it disproportionately reflects green when illuminated with a CF bulb. The other nice thing about LED bulbs is they're more efficient. All three of these are 60 watt equivalent. This one consumes 13 watts, this one 10.5, and this one just 9 watts, and they're about the same brightness. But my understanding is that bulbs like this are actually a relatively poor match for LEDs, because LEDs are best when operated relatively cool. And if we look inside, this is the inside for one of these. We have just 8 LEDs in here, and this bulb gets fairly hot, especially because we've got the whole plastic around here. Whereas the strips that Jim sent me, I've got this one long strip. This one is 12 watts, and it's got 96 LEDs, and when it's on, it barely gets warm. So I set up an experiment. I've got the 13 watt CF bulb here, and the 9 watt LED bulb here, and as far as I can tell, these both have pretty equivalent light outputs. They're both 60 watt equivalent. And here I've got a 12 watt LED strip, but to be fair, I blocked off 1/4 of it, so it's like 9 watts worth of LED light coming out. And looking at it from a distance, I'd say this is quite a bit brighter than either of those two. Given that these LED strips are more efficient than the bulbs and I already have them, I went ahead and already mounted some above my main work area in the shop. And the cool thing is these mount really flush to the ceiling, so I'm much less likely to hit them. But I still want to be able to control the light a bit, so some of these I've actually put on swivel mounts so I can vary where they're aiming. And I'd like to also put one back here that I can either aim at the table saw or aim into the back of the shop. So ideally I'd be able to have it out of my way here or come down like this here. So I need some kind of offset swivel for this. So I figure I'm going to mount this LED strip on top of this piece of wood and then attach another short piece on here and have an offset mount for the swivel. So I need to join the pieces of wood at the corner, and as usual I'll use my screw advance box joint jig. The light holder screws to this bracket that's going to mount to the ceiling, and that allows it to pivot around the screw. The light strip has got this adhesive backing, and I'll just use that to attach it to my mount. The LED lights themselves need to run at a low voltage DC, and for that there's these converters here, and you can just plug the wires in here into the little terminal strip. And on the other side is line, and I'll put my power cord directly in here. I also keep forgetting to turn the lights off in the shop, so I've been experimenting with one of these motion sensor switches, and I've just wired it in with a cable, and then that goes to this lamp here. I can turn it on and off like a regular light switch, but right now it's set to 30 seconds, so after 30 seconds of no motion, it should shut itself off. And then when I come back in the shop, it turns itself back on. It's got these two little adjustable potentiometers to adjust the motion sensitivity and how long it's going to stay on, from 30 seconds to 30 minutes. There's a couple of things tricky about this one. It does need to have ground hooked up to work at all, because it actually drains a little bit of power from hot to ground just for its own operational current. And the other thing, for the first 30 seconds after power is applied, it won't do anything. It won't switch or anything, so it's almost like it's running Windows. So give it a bit of time when you install it and turn on the power. And now after I leave the shop, the lights always turn off, and when I come back in, they turn on automatically. I love it.